Hey, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Tuesday. It is the Earthmaster out here, about 11:23 a.m. Still morning time out here in California. September 17th, 2024 is the date. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D Globe shows a 1.0 out around the California area, 1.0. We had another eruption out there across the big island of Hawaii last night around the Kilauea Volcano. We'll get to that here in just a little bit. Looking at some larger scale movement around the Kermadec Trench southward, and even some movement here south of New Zealand, 4.8 coming in on the plate boundary. Put New Zealand right there in the hot spot, so we'll continue to watch for some further larger scale activity across that plate boundary. Eventually it's going to fill in. Here for the States, starting off here in Texas, out around the area that's seen that 5.1 earthquake yesterday. Goodness, fairly decent sized earthquake. A little swarm going on out there in the oil fields following that 5.1. And as I showed you guys here on the previous images, it sits out here along the Permian Basin area of Texas, a massive area of a wealth of oil. And I've been out there numerous times, and it seems like you can't even go 500 feet without bumping into another oil pad out here. That's how cluttered and how much work has been here at the surface level, drilling down and getting that oil out of the ground and whatnot. Quite a few wastewater disposal ponds out here as well. And this earthquake activity stirring up in a region of it. So we'll continue to keep an eye on it. Obviously, these earthquakes will continue into the future. Some of these do get a little bit larger than a 5.1. I think the largest Texas has seen is 5.7, if I remember right. So, not really worried about a 7-pointer out here happening in the oil fields, but you never know. You poke enough holes in the crust and things can happen. 2.6, the latest outside of Pecos, Texas as well. And if you look here on the satellite view, even this area of the desert of Texas has a lot of these oil pads. Here's some wastewater disposal ponds up here. And a little bit harder to see on this map, but they're out there. These oil pumping pads here and whatnot. All right, let's back out of here. See what else we got. Nothing major going on across the eastern portion of the country. Pacific Northwest as well. California-wise, here we got one earthquake in the Bay Area near Oakland, 2.4. Just about 20 minutes or so ago, coming into the area. Off of the Calaveras, Hayward Fault. Ooh, it's infamous Hayward Fault out here. This area is definitely primed for some larger scale potential. Runs through some major populated areas. For now, only a 2.4. Further down along the San Andreas Fault here, fairly minimal at best. Southern California here got a handful of smaller quakes. 1 or 2, maybe even 3 earthquakes here late last night of 2.5 and above. The latest one at 2.5 on the Imperial and the Brawley seismic zone down here, extreme southern end of California. Malibu area catching another 2.8. This brings a tally. I'm not for sure what the tally is out there, but they've been getting a lot of earthquakes out there across this Malibu coast fault here. 4.7 kicked it off here on the 12th of this month, and it's just been off and on amount of earthquake activity. Nothing big, but it's capable, obviously, of producing some larger scale earthquake activity. That is just one region of many other areas around Southern California here recently that have seen an increase in multitude and magnitudes there of earthquakes across various areas. And it's still obviously of some concern there that the San Andreas Fault may go underneath all of this extreme activity. Right now, it's sleeping. That's a good sign. Well, I mean, I don't know if that's a good sign or not. Eventually, it's going to wake up. There's really no good sign with the San Andreas Fault. I guess after the earthquake occurs, then we have a good sign, because then we know it's going to be a couple more 100 years before it goes again. But, we're looking at over 300 years of built-up strain. It could happen at any minute. That's the unfortunate side of things here is after this takes place, we know that at least the plate boundary here won't have another large, big earthquake like that, at least for a couple 100 years. And we're definitely well overdue. We're in that time period where we really don't want to be, but it's good to be prepared here. Got to watch San Andreas Fault for sure. 1.2 lakeside area down south outside of San Diego. Really nothing of any major interest today aside from that little bit of swarming down here along the Brawley and Imperial fault system here. One thing I've noticed is we haven't had a lot of swarming up here recently along the Brawley seismic zone. Normally we'll see some type of swarming kicking up here, and that's a little odd. There hasn't been any. And we've seen a lot of historical swarms out here with no major earthquake activity, but we're lacking the swarm down here, and I don't know exactly what that means. Could be bad, could be good, I don't know. But I do think the elevated overall picture out here is putting the test on the San Andreas Fault right now. What do we got here? Another earthquake out in Texas. That's outside of Snyder, Texas. This earthquake activity, a little bit newer out here. There's some oil fields out here as well. It's just out here a couple times this year. Right around these pumping operations. If you zoom in here close enough, you can pretty much see those holding tanks. Quite a few of those earthquakes occurring directly underneath this area. And eventually, areas that have not been hit will get hit, and they tend to follow a trail leading up towards Oklahoma. We've seen a lot down around the San Antonio area over the last few months. Here's just the last 30 days outside of the Three Rivers area. Quite a few oil fields out here. You can see them, right? If you look really closely, these little green or little brown checkered boxes out on the green, the vegetation there. A lot of oil fields out here. Fracking operations, wastewater ponds, you name it. And eventually these ones that have not got hit or haven't gotten hit yet will eventually down the road. And some of those earthquakes can get big, upper fives or so. Worldwide activity, let's check out the latest in terms of the largest magnitude here. Today, anyway, is going to be that 5.0 Kermadec Islands area, New Zealand. This earthquake somewhat deep there into the trench, 69 miles deep. Continuing to see some threes out here across New Zealand with some further adjustment down south with a 4.8. Keep an eye on New Zealand there because it looks like it's eventually it's going to have to move. We've only seen a handful of smaller quakes out here. So, all right, Hawaii now is another story off and on eruption here. Let's go over and check out the latest informational statement here from the USGS here and see what they have. Still sitting at an orange and a watch level. Now there is a new eruption occurring out here in the Middle East Rift Zone. Let me get rid of these past lava flows and zoom in here to the most recent one, which is roughly over here. You can see just a fraction of it, a very small fissure. This update was put out fairly recent. Let me check this out here real quick. Kilauea Volcano is currently erupting near the this crater area in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Eruptive activity increased this morning. Excuse me. We had rain last night, and here it is. My voice messing up. Goodness. Increased eruptive activity this morning between 4 and 5 a.m. Hawaii time based on monitoring data from seismicity infrasound, webcam imagery, and GOES satellite thermal imagery. There is no immediate threat to life or infrastructure. They're keeping it at a watch in the orange due to the current condition. Things could drastically change there. This new eruption began with a very small eruption in that same area back on the 15th, and then, of course, early this morning on a remote section of the Middle East Rift Zone. Here's they got a reference right here in that little area, and that's where most of the magma accumulation has been building up, and that's where most of the earthquake activity has been as well. But I guarantee you there's a lot more down there than what's going on here at the surface level. Let's see, do we have any pictures? I know they put out a little one here recently. There's an overflight view here. Let's see here what we got. We'll check this out real quick. This is the first one here. Well, this shows the 16th. Yeah, so this imagery is going to be from the first event there on the 15th, not of early this morning's eruptive activity. And as you can see there, obviously burning some of the vegetation out there. Very small fissure, but this whole area is quite swollen in terms of the magma inflation that, or magma accumulation that has occurred underneath this area. I believe it's highly pressurized. And just right now, just barely breaking through some of the surface areas up here to produce these small fissures. But I think we're going to see a much broader event out here soon. And there haven't been a lot of release of magma from below up to the surface. There's not a lot of loss of magma yet. So that's why I say that we're going to continue to see the chances of something bigger happening out here. A broader scale eruption, and that's the September 15th time period. I'm not seeing a whole lot of information here on the 16th or from early this morning. So whether they haven't got out there yet or not, I guess we'll have to wait and see here. Let me check out these webcams, see if we can see anything on them. Go over here to the USGS site. Make sure everything's off. Bells are off. East Rift Zone, Lower East Rift Zone. Eastern flank. Maybe back over there across that crest there is where some of that volcanic... Oh, there we go. There's a little bit better view. September 17th, local Hawaii time there. So obviously it looks like we still have an ongoing eruption there. Either that or that's some of the vegetation that's occurring, burning. There's some well, is that volcanic gas or some fog? It looks like volcanic gas or VOG. Lower East Rift Zone, nothing going on down there, I don't think. That's still from August there. I don't know why, but oh, goodness. Anyway, it looks like, at least according to their latest update here, that things are continuing far as another eruption this morning in the same region. Now, the deformation data at the summit, of course, not going to really matter because we're not looking at the eruption up there. There's our volume of magma that was lost back on the previous intrusion from this area of the summit off to the Middle East Rift Zone here, where we're seeing the ongoing activity take place. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of... let me get rid of some of this here. Of tilt meters specifically in this area. Tilt meters would give us a good indication of where that magma is rolling around at. Obviously, we know that the latest intrusion has pushed it over here, where all the earthquake activity is occurring and the ongoing eruption is taking place, but there's not a whole lot of specific tilt meters in that area. Earthquake activity has drastically decreased, so we'll continue to watch it. I don't think it's over yet here. We haven't had that full volume of magma below depleted. It's just barely breaking through some of the very tiniest of areas there at the surface region. So we will continue to watch this and report back on it. Let's see what we got here. This is from September 17th. That's actually, this is this morning. So this is a fairly new image. Cute little lava flow out here, right? Not a huge one, but getting a little bit of fountaining going on here across the area. Some lava flows here on each side of that fissure. Beautiful image. Back out of here real quick. A couple other images here, it looks like. So I'm glad they at least got one here from today. the latest image of the ongoing activity. These previous ones here from the 15th, with some of the vegetation being burned. August 22nd. See, there's still a lot of volume of magma underneath this area here. All right, so we'll continue to watch that, folks, and report back on anything that may change out there. But for now, main area to watch, obviously, with the ongoing fishery event is right here around this area. And I think it's going to kick up a little bit more than what we're seeing. So, all right, what else we got out here worldwide? Anything major going on? Western Pacific, fairly quiet. One earthquake up here across the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench off the coast of Russia, 4.8. Going to be this earthquake right here, somewhat deep into the northern edge of that subduction zone, 65 miles deep here. Aleutian Trench, minor activity out there, but really not a whole lot of any elevated movement here today. Middle American Trench, fairly quiet on the USGS board. On the EMSC model here, a couple smaller earthquakes here along the Middle American Trench southward. And there's a handful of quakes into the South America region as well along the southern end of the Peru-Chile Trench. Some newer activity down here. Atlantic Ocean starting to come to life a little bit. 4.9 down into the area of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Fairly recent earthquake, just within the last hour and 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes. Let's see, it looks like we got a little bit of activity further up north as well, north of Greenland. A little bit out here across the Azores region. Aside from that, Mediterranean region, mostly microquake activity. Clustering going on here in our typical crunch zone across the Java Trench and the Indonesia Islands area. So we'll see how today plays out. Now, think about this. Last night, we got slammed with a G4 class storm. Goodness. Fairly intense aurora event. We'll check that out here in just a second. I want to make a point here that our planet got hammered with an intense solar storm, and we have yet to see any signs of it kicking up any type of earthquake activity. Now, one can say, well, it happened a couple days down the road. That's pretty much an irrelevant thought, right? If you think about it, anyone could say California's going to have an earthquake in 100 years. That's pretty much along the lines of saying that earthquake activity is going to kick up a couple days from now following the arrival of the CME. It doesn't work like that. If anything, it happens during the event or maybe a couple hours afterwards. But as of right now, I have yet to see any elevated earthquake activity stirring up as a result of a strong solar storm. Nada. Zip zero. 5.1 happened in Texas before the arrival of that CME. And we did manage to kick up around a G4 class storm. That is fairly significant. The one we had back in May was a G5, KP index of 9, so we're just shy of that. A lot of auroras coming in from all over the place here. Even the face of solarham.com is on here. Goodness. I've never seen the owner of this, so it's pretty cool to post a selfie of yourself with the auroras out there in the background. Of course, I believe his name's Kevin, is up there in Canada. But, yeah, goodness, fairly strong storm. Persisted for the majority of the night. Unfortunately, here in Northern California, we didn't see any because of the rain showers we were getting and cloud cover. Possible we may have seen some had we had clear skies. Getting a little bit of proton events right now, mainly across the polar regions. That's the other thing, no major earthquake activity. We got bombarded with protons, slammed with a massive CME and elevated G4 storming conditions, and no large earthquake activity. In fact, on any given day here, you can find 4s and 5s anywhere across the globe. No 6s, no 7s, no 8s, no 9s. 5.1 stirred up well before the arrival. This activity here across New Zealand and southward, that's just a given day. So I think that's another one for the books here, where space relation here, at least in the near term, does not have an effect on the earthquake activity right now. Not saying it's every time, but we've gone back and looked at past historical large events, space weather events, and we did come across a couple large earthquakes that occurred almost immediately during or after the space weather activity. But right now, I guess we'll see. We'll give it today. We'll give it the rest of the day, but we can't say it's going to happen a week from now. That it doesn't make sense. That's like saying, again, like California's going to have a big earthquake. Yeah, it's going to have a big earthquake eventually, but no one can say it's going to take a week for it to take effect. That's just silly. All right, let's get back to space weather activity. For now, the conditions appear to be calming down, although there's still a little bit of KP index up here on the board. Current one, though, diminishing below the G1 class threshold. And tonight's forecast, not a whole lot going on there. So that was fun while it lasted, right? G4 storming conditions, goodness. Auroras all over my social media page. Got a couple coming in through the email as well. Appreciate it. If you happen to catch any cool auroras out there, let me know where you're at. Send them to me. I'll gladly share them up here on the next update video tonight. earthmastermail@gmail.com. Let me know where you're at, your name, maybe what type of camera you use and settings. That'd be kind of cool. Flaring activity, fairly minimal. The result, or the culprit, of this recent X-flare activity and CME activity is this guy right here. But notice the diminishing complexity of that sunspot. There's still a little central core here that is in close proximity, but it overall looks like it's holding steady or maybe diminishing slightly for this sunspot area, which is currently facing the Earth. So if it's going to blast off another X-flare and a large CME, it would probably want to do it here today or over the next 2 days. Not a whole lot behind it. Some very weak sunspots, fairly stable in the complexity. So if this thing doesn't produce anything, then obviously we're not going to see a whole lot of elevated threats out here for flaring. 15% chance for X-flare, M-flare at 55, C-flare around 99% chance or so. All right, Storm Prediction Center here. Goodness, got some severe weather ramping up across areas of, I guess, the western Central Plains, eastern Colorado area. This is a result of low pressure that's been over California here the last day or so, bringing us some much cooler and wetter conditions. That's shifting east a little bit, stirring up with the warmer, moist air, creating that typical spring-fall pattern that you see out here for severe weather. Not a whole lot for tornado activity. That's limited up there across Montana for a 2% zone. But some wind, and main threat looks to be some wind. Nebraska included in that as well, so just a heads up there. Could see some strong outflow, or mainly it should be outflow dominant winds out there with those thunderstorms. Spike of an earthquake there on Barrett. That's Southern California. Really not seeing anything major going on for now. We'll keep an eye on things here and see how it plays out. 2.1 just outside of Portland right now. California just sitting out here, kind of waiting game for this. We'll be out here monitoring a few things. Got a fairly busy schedule here today, so I'll be off and on here, just kind of checking in on things. Have a good day, folks. Enjoy your Tuesday. We'll catch you guys back out here tonight. Take care and stay safe out there.